Am I the asshole for covering my mom's mouth during a movie? Hi, this is my first post, so please be kind lol. Today I went to go see the new Final Destination with my mom at the movie theater. Every time a character was killed, she screamed bloody murder like she had just witnessed the character actually die in front of her. Now, she's always been like this. Every time we've seen a movie where something even slightly scary happens, she gasps super loud or screams at the top of her lungs. It's okay when we're watching movies at home because, it's in a private space, but when she does this at movie theaters it's so embarrassing. Especially if it's a silent scene and she's making these little gasping noises in fear of what's about to occur. Anyways, I really didn't want to see this movie. I respect the Final Destination franchise, but I'm not good with horror thrillers, but she begged me to go. I said okay, we go. The movie starts blah 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 and then a character dies and she immediately yells like she's never yelled before. I'm leaning away from her out of embarrassment and I swear the lady next to me is glaring at my mom. Well, this happens again and again and again and it gets to a point, so during the next death, every scene, I cover her mouth with my hand and let her scream into it. After she's done yelling and realizes that my hands is on her mouth, she pulls my hand off and glares at me. For the rest of the movie she stays silent and I'm like, cool, finally. And then we watch the rest of the movie with no other yells from her. Movie finally ends, we get out of the movie theater, into her car, and she starts yelling at me. She calls me disrespectful for putting my filthy, girl bye, hand over her mouth and that I was in a hole. I tell her that every time she screamed like she'd witnessed the death in front of her, I got embarrassed and people started looking at us. That she can do it at home, but not in public where other people are trying to enjoy the movie. Anyways, now she won't speak to me. I heard her discussing the movie with my dad and then she mentioned that her experience of the movie was ruined when I put my hand over her mouth. Like bruh. So, am I the asshole for covering my mom's mouth with my hand during a movie? Edit. Hi. Thank you so much, everyone, for commenting. I never expected so much feedback. I just wanted to add, since I saw this in a few comments earlier, that I did whisper to my mom to please be more quiet each time she had screamed prior to the hand over the mouth thingy. Additionally, I know it was wrong of me to go when I knew that she was like this. But I just thought she had changed since it had been a few years since we'd seen a horror movie together at the theaters, probably before COVID. Anyways, later I'm going to apologize for what I did and gently tell her that her huge reactions are disruptive. I hope it goes well. Thanks again. Not the asshole, but also don't go to movies like that with her anymore and tell her why. And also, if I had been in that movie theater I would have been so pissed at her behavior and grateful you got her to shut up. Not the asshole. Your mom clearly isn't actually scared by any of the stuff on screen, since she was able to stay silent for the rest of the movie, so there's no reason for her to have been screaming other than for attention. You're a hero to moviegoers everywhere, op. Your mom is rude to everyone else in that theater. You are not the asshole. And her being able to control it later shows she's only doing it for the attention. Not the asshole. If she managed to keep her yap shut through the rest of the movie then she's clearly screaming on purpose the rest of the time. Rude as hell to do in a theater. Personally, I'd never go to a movie with her again. Not the asshole. People like her are the reason we don't go to theaters anymore. Not the asshole. Interesting that your mother could suddenly control her impulses. I suspect she only does it for attention. Am I the asshole for saying my brother is untalented and should quit? I have a brother, 23 male, who while in prison wrote a book. I won't leak the book title because I don't want to dox my family by accident, but it's genuinely the worst thing imaginable. No grammar, no punctuation, no plot. Not even grammatically incorrect in a stylistic way. There are no gaps between dialogue. Since he was in jail I assumed this was a way to pass time, so I thought nothing of it. But he's been out for a month now and instead of getting a job, he wants to pursue his author career. Our mom and dad didn't push back on this. Admittedly I was not nice about this and laughed at him almost immediately. It was about a 10-minute back and forth, but the summary was, I called him a broke loser who needs a real job and that his book was awful and that I could genuinely write better than that and that I've read gay fanfiction better than this. I was mean, yes. But I feel like a grown man should at least get a job after getting released from jail, especially considering he has a baby on the way. I was yelled at for being disrespectful to an adult. My parents are making me apologize tomorrow and said that family should encourage each other and to not tear down people. Especially considering I do have trouble being judgmental. My brother is also mad at me and it's awful around the house. I've been accused of never being supportive of not just him, but the entire family. Am I the asshole? Edit. I don't mind he wants to write. Do I think the novel's bad? Yeah, but fine. I really blew my lid because he's refusing to look for a job. I really want employment for him, especially as an ex-con. Edit 2. Thank you for everyone who replied. This is the final edit as I think I know my course of action from here. But as I'm probably leaving this post alone now, I'll put some further clarifications so I don't have to respond anymore. He is married to said pregnant lady, married at 19, imprisoned at 21. He was only there for non-violent charges and we live in one of a few states that allow conjugal visits. So yes, I'm assuming he was allowed a conjugal visit and that's how baby was conceived. Though I'm not interested in knowing my brother's in-depth sex life, so didn't ask many details. Either that or it's not his baby, which is gonna make a very interesting 9 months. We all live together, besides married pregnant lady who I'm pretty sure lives with her grandmother. I don't know her very well, this is not a draft, it is published. He is not looking for jobs and working on his craft in the meantime. He's not looking, period. Again, thank you for everyone who replied, even the weird ones. Esh. But why TF did you specifically say gay fan fiction? Face with raised eyebrow. Edit. It's been resolved, lol. Stop adding to this thread tears of joy. I'm going to go against the grain here, so downvote away, but Esh, mostly you. Him, because yeah, he should be bringing in some income, especially if he has a baby on the way. But you offered rude, unsolicited advice. Clearly, yes, the book is god awful. But what, exactly, did calling him a broke loser accomplish other than making people feel like shit? He didn't ask for feedback. He's unlikely to suddenly abandon this plan and join the workforce. In fact, your shitting on him will likely make it harder for him to do that. You don't have to encourage someone in a course of action you think is wrong. But tearing someone down deliberately is an asshole move. Too many everyone sucks here when Op just blatantly sucks. This post is case in point. Drop a link to the book just so I can buy it out of spite. You weren't yelled at for being disrespectful to an adult. It has nothing to do with your age, as I know 8-year-olds with more empathy and tact than what you've demonstrated in this post. Not to mention you can't just pull random lines from a book and grill them for grammar. Context matters. Is OP's brother the next Zora Neale Hurston? No. Is Op an asshole? IDK, but I wouldn't want to be around her. Fucking prick. There are people who will want to read his book, and some will appreciate his different perspective. He might not be successful, but he has an artistic outlet. Why try to ruin that for him? You are the asshole. You are the asshole. He's been out of prison for 1 month. 4 weeks, that's it. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get employment with a felony? Maybe him trying to pursue writing is because no one will hire him and he knows he needs money. Geesh, way to kick a guy when he's trying to get back up. Esh. He needs to get a job, even if this book is something he wants to pursue. But you're only instigating drama by saying his book is awful and embarrassing him. I disagree with your parents saying you need to be supportive, but I just keep my mouth shut and let him fail on his own. Am I the asshole for telling my wife's stepdad our newborn son isn't calling him father? My 27M wife's 27F father passed away when she was 9 and her mom remarried to her stepdad when she was 15. My wife and her stepdad have always butted heads because he oversteps and has tried to force himself as a father figure in her life. When my wife's mom married him, they both made it very clear that he was never going to be her dad and he basically had no control over her, and he has reluctantly accepted that over the years. Fast forward to today, my wife gave birth to our son a week ago. He is the first grandbaby on both sides, so all the grandparents are trying to figure out what they want to be called. My wife's stepdad's name is David and wants our son to call him Avi, which means father in Hebrew. My wife and I are uncomfortable with our son calling him this, so we asked him if there was another name he could go by, and he made a fuss that he intentionally didn't want to be called grandpa because my wife has made a point in the past that his actual grandpa is no longer with us. But now he's complaining that we aren't going to be happy with any name he wants to go by. Am I the asshole for telling him my son isn't calling him father? Not the asshole, for sure. Why the Hebrew word for father? Is he Jewish? Saba and Zaid are right there. How strange. Not the asshole. He shouldn't be called Avi no matter what, because he isn't the father. You are. It doesn't sound like grandpa would be appropriate either, even if he wanted it. Your wife doesn't see him as a father. Tell him that unless he stops being obstinate and picks a different name you all agree on, the baby is going to be calling him David. Not the asshole, he wants his step-grandson to call him father. How is that not weird? Sounds like he wants a redo and is trying to project that onto your son. Tell him your baby can call him David. I called my stepdad's father, Jim. It's perfectly fine, and to be honest, Jim was the only person in that family I actually liked. We even lived with him and his wife for years cause my stepdad was kinda a loser, ha ha ha. Pop pop. Solves the problem, not the asshole. That child will never know your wife's biological dad, and even he did, it's okay to have multiple grandpas. Just go with grandpa. David works too. Avi sounds ridiculous. Is he right? That no matter what name he goes by, one of you three will object to it? Am I the asshole for refusing to switch stylists and scheduling more appointments? Am I the asshole for refusing to switch stylists and scheduling more appointments? Me, 36 female, and my partner, 45 male, have 3 kids, 12 female, 10 female, 7 male, and in the last year, the older 2 have gone to my stylist to get their hair cut. I had never found a stylist who did both a cut and color that I liked. Once I found a stylist 2 years ago, though she was more expensive than I paid for before, I decided this was something I was willing to splurge on for once in my life, and it coincided with me getting a big raise, so it was easier to justify it. As my kids got older, they wanted shorter haircuts that I, personally, felt were beyond my husband's YouTube skills. Pixie-like cuts, and both kids have very different hair in terms of thickness, texture, etc. The oldest is also very neurospicy and often has trouble expressing what she wants, likes, dislikes, and goes into meltdown mode before we can get any clear answers. I made them appointments at my stylist, which ended up being around $60 before tip, and they've been going for the last year or so. My culturally frugal to a fault partner thinks this is way too much money to spend on a kid's haircut, and that we either need to find someone less expensive, or he can cut their hair himself, which sometimes includes his Flowbee. I am clearly opposed to one of these much more than the other. We disagree on a number of things, but my biggest points are: 1. As a man, his identity, self-esteem is not attached to his hair like women, femme-presenting folks, and he doesn't think a bad haircut is a big deal. 2. Trimming long hair, like he's previously done, is absolutely not the same thing as very short haircuts, and he absolutely does not have the skill level to attempt them, nor would I want my pre-teens as the guinea pigs. 3. Not all stylists are created the same, and just because we can find somewhere less expensive, it doesn't mean everything will turn out exactly like they want. 4. In particular for my neurodivergent kiddo, it's going to be hell to find someone new that understands what her nonverbal squeaks mean, has built up a rapport, and better understands her likes, dislikes, triggers. I do agree that it is more money than I'd usually care to spend, and I certainly never had those cuts when I was a kid, but I think the pros outweigh the cons, and we can afford it. I might be willing to entertain looking somewhere else, but because we disagree on it, I told him it's up to him to do the research on local stylists, salons, and find different recommendations, then be the one to take them, because I've already done all of those things and I don't think we need to switch right now. In the meantime, hair keeps growing, so I scheduled appointments for both to continue where I want them. So, am I the asshole for not wanting to switch stylists and continue scheduling them for appointments, despite the cost and their age? ETA: a couple points I should have made before, and one my husband feels is important that I left out. 1. Both kids do not want to switch stylists. They like where they are and don't want to move. 2. To balance out the cost, I do not schedule them every 6 weeks. I schedule their appointments every 3 to 4 months, like I do with my own. 3. His point. My oldest rarely showers. Both preteen laziness and sensory issues, she does not like showering. Nor does she put any effort into her hair. She pretty much walks out of bed into school, maybe throwing a brush through it if we tell her to. For my husband, that's reason to not spend money on it because she clearly doesn't care about what her hair looks like. For me, that's the sign of a good haircut. You don't have to do shit to feel fine with it. As someone who used to spend 3 hours with the 3 different straighteners on high to do her hair when she was young, that's something I really wish I had. Not the asshole I've been to probably a dozen different stylists, ranging from cheap to paying more for an actually good cut. And the only times they ever get my pixie cut right is when I'm paying $60 plus at an actual salon. It's not exactly cheap, but it's not outrageous to pay that much for a haircut, and especially when you're neurodivergent, same, getting it right is worth the money. Nah, he's got a point and expressed it. You have multiple very valid points and are invoking the stay put clause. I'm using language from an IEP on purpose to protect your daughter. If he wants to change a placement that is already working, then he can do the work of finding the new placement. In the meantime, this placement is appropriate. What do the kids want? Assuming they want to see this stylist, then not the asshole. Maybe my perspective is warped because I don't really know how much kids' haircuts cost, but $60 for a haircut in general doesn't strike me as expensive. And you can afford it, so I don't see the issue. If you don't have combined finances, it would be fair for you to be the one to pay for this. But you're being reasonable with the stance that if he wants to switch it should be his problem to deal with it. Not the asshole. Sometimes you have to spend a little more to get what you want and $60 plus tip isn't exorbitant for a women's cut. Not the asshole. You're not just paying for a haircut, you're paying for someone who actually gets your kids, especially your neurodivergent daughter. That kind of trust and comfort is seriously hard to find and totally worth the extra money if you can afford it. It's not like you're blowing money on something ridiculous, you're making sure your kids feel confident and safe. If your partner really thinks it's too much, he can go play salon manager and find a miracle stylist for cheaper who checks all those boxes. Until then, you're doing what works. Not the asshole. I agree. If dad wants to go somewhere different, then he can do all the mental load of making that transition. A good stylist and salon are hard to find.